I just finished the Neon Genesis Evangelion series and the End of Evangelion, I guess, reworking of the final 2 episodes, but it's not really a reworking, it's like an alternate ending, and I think both of them are actually true endings, and apparently there's more endings. I'm gonna have to get to the rest of it. I will get to the rest of Evangelion, the like rebirth and stuff like that, but I'm gonna take a little break from it. I've been having a real hard time in my real life. If you'd like to donate to me, I've got a PayPal link down there in the description. But we're going to go over some End of Evangelion analysis. I've got 2 videos lined up that we're going to look at. This one's a short one and the other one's a little bit longer. So let's just get right into it, man. I love Evangelion, Neon Genesis. It's great. I think it's going to end up being one of my favorite anime, especially after I check out these analyses. And this one's from Chrysanth or Chrysanth. I don't know what that is. I'm going to go ahead and give you a subscribe and a like.
People think too much about the final scene of the End of Evangelion.
Yeah,
well,
I think
that makes
so
it
too.
sound like I think people...
That's not really what I'm wanting a analysis of, or not an analysis of. That's not really what I'm focused on. I'm focused on the whole rest of it, like the journey to the end, because I kind of get the ending. As a Christian, I kind of get it.
Shouldn't care about it. This is one of my favorite scenes in any movie ever, and
It's pretty
deserves
good.
all the attention and speculation that it gets. However, I think a lot of people maybe get too deep into the speculation of what is literally happening here, or what the characters are exactly thinking, and they fail to grasp the more general thematic purpose of it, because it wasn't stated directly in words. I think a lot of what
Right.
makes this final scene valuable to me can
I think it really helps if you are reading the Bible or have read the Bible.
be drawn simply from how it feels to watch it, not even needing to question what's going on, symbolism, what Shinji is thinking when he chokes Asuka, or why she says
Yeah, that's
disgusting.
crazy.
The finale is placed right
Yeah, okay, yeah, I get that with the disgusting thing. I really wish that wouldn't have been how it ended, but you know, that's how it ended, so that's how it ended, and I think it was very important.
after a very uplifting and hopeful sequence. The orchestral score soars as
It was
Shinji appears
beautiful.
to come to understand
Like, straight up uses, like, classical music that exists. It didn't, like, make up its own music, and I think that was great.
his tendency for escapism, and as he hears the final words from Rei, Kaoru, and his mother, ultimately resolves to reject instrumentality, return to the real world, and make more real connections with other people. On top of the score, heavy reverb is placed on many of the voices delivering sometimes esoteric yet ultimately uplifting statements.
生きていこうとさえ思えばどこだって天国になるわ。
I'm gonna have to rewatch it in Japanese. I'm not gonna do a reaction series. By the way, I've got my entire reaction series in a playlist. I'll have it linked down there in the comments if you haven't checked it out, if you want to check it out. But I'm not gonna react to the Japanese version. I am going to watch it on my own time. Because I always do that with all the anime that I love. I watch the English and the Japanese. I did it with Fullmetal Alchemist. I did it with Attack on Titan. I did it with Dragon Ball, which I like. Hot take, I like the Japanese version of Dragon Ball more. Like, Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super, all those, Dragon Ball GT. I just like the vibe of it more. But I do love the original. This isn't about Dragon Ball.
幸せになるチャンスはどこにでもあるわ。太陽と月と地球がある限り大丈夫。
And visually, the sequence is filled with lots of bright imagery, or shots of light against the darkness, like the stars against the background of space, or the glowing crosses rising above a destroyed world with
Yeah,
light
so
now
cool,
breaking
man.
through the clouds. All of these sensory elements combine to deliver a dreamlike feel, heavenly, even without thinking about the narrative. The visuals, the music, the dialogue wash over the viewer like a blanket of pure optimism in the face of the world's destruction.
Dude,
Wash over the
I
viewer
just-
like a blanket of pure optimism in the face
right there, man. That's so cool. That they knew what they were doing with this, man.
of the world's destruction. It's appropriate as this scene takes place in the goo. The divisive barriers between souls have been broken down and everyone exists in a state of blissful harmony. It is in this state that Shinji is able to realize that he had made positive connections, even friendships with other people, and he's able to decide that he wants to try continuing
Yeah, he constantly throughout the whole thing is like, everybody hates me, and it's my fault. I really feel for him there, man.
to overcome the barriers between people and make more real connections. In the moment, it feels like a powerful decision to take the harder path on which he has already been hurt many times, but also the one that's more mature and rewarding. The feeling is one of ascending above everything, beyond the destruction, past previous conflicts and hardships, achieved through the simple will to get better. It's beautiful. The music fades out as Shinji says goodbye to his mother, and the Evangelion floats away into the vastness of space. We get the sense that it could have ended there, but it can't. There's one more final.
One more final. I need you. Yeah. Dude, it's so cool. It's like the face is sideways looking at you, but also it's like half of a face. It's incredible.
We are immediately greeted with shots of a devastated wasteland. The sky is dark, the land is ravaged, and the water is the color of blood. There is no music, no heavenly orchestral score, just the red waves crashing against the beach. The immediate feeling is one of juxtaposition to the previous sequence. The world outside instrumentality is not nearly as wonderful. We have been brought back down to earth, and it feels harsh and unforgiving. The next two shots expand on this. We first see Shinji and Asuka laying next to each other on the beach from high above. The composition emphasizes that the two characters are isolated. There's nothing and no one else around them. From farther away, they appear close together, but the next shot isolates them from each other, putting their arms on opposite sides of the screen. The barriers between souls have returned. They are alone on this beach with only each other, and even then, they feel so far apart. Again, these two shots and Shinji's following actions serve as a contrast to the "anywhere can be paradise" sequence. It reminds us what it means to leave instrumentality, being put back into a world where people don't immediately understand and love each other. This is highlighted by the imagery and the audio. It puts us into an experiential state fundamentally different from the one in which Shinji made the decision to heal, grow, and conquer hardship. It forces us to think that maybe that decision only could have been reached in that state of...
Yeah, it also kind of shows that as time goes on, the world crumbles more and becomes more and more a desolate wasteland, and you shouldn't care about it. And all that there is the two of them, and everything else sucks, and you don't need it.
Bliss. Because even if it will all be okay as long as we have the sun, the moon, and the earth, Shinji chose to destroy the world as we know it, and now it looks like this. Even if anywhere can be paradise, he now has to share it with the person most central to his self-hatred. Even if it's possible to make real connections with other people, he has to do it with the embodiment of his social failure. Outside of instrumentality, he doesn't have the strength to grow, at least not right now. In fact, he's in a mental state much more selfish and destructive than he was at the start of the movie. Of course, that's not to say that it's impossible for him to grow, or that the previous sequence's pep talk was wrong, but this is how the movie chooses to end. The final scene of the End of Evangelion is a challenge to its own optimism. The choices of imagery, audio, and direction make us immediately feel that growth is not as simple as a bunch of beautiful phrases stated over pretty music and ethereal visuals, and they deliver that message much more effectively than any possible internal monologue or dialogue explanation from the characters.
And it wants you to think that it's gonna have a happy ending, and then it just like doesn't it's not even a sad ending, but it's also not a happy ending. It's just kind of an ending.
Subtly prompts us to question, how easy is it really? And puts us more into the director's headspace, dealing with how difficult it is to decide to heal from rock bottom, to stick with it, to stay consistent with your personal growth, to not stagnate or regress. Evangelion gives us one of the most beautiful, uplifting sequences in all of fiction, and immediately follows it up with Shinji's crushing regression into the state where he decided everyone should die, because in our lowest moments, we can still logically know that there is hope, that there is a way out, that there is potential for good as long as we keep living. But even then, it still feels like this.
Incredible. That was a great analysis, man. I'm glad I subscribed and liked this guy. But let's move on to the next one, an even deeper analysis, but this time, it's from Father Roderick. Anime Secrets. I didn't know this was a thing. I didn't know that there was a guy that was just like, I guess he's a Catholic, he's a father, and he analyzes anime. That's really cool, so I'm going to subscribe and like this. So let's see what he's got to say about it.
So I've watched the final 2 episodes of Neon Genesis Evangelion, as well as the End of Evangelion, and I have thoughts and feelings and ideas.
I do too.
And I want to share them with you. And what you're about to see is an excerpt from my weekly show Story Secrets that I record every week for my patrons. If you would like to get access to the full show, take a look at patreon.com/Father Roderick. I would love it if you could join my Patreon community.
Wow, this video is starting off really well. This is a nice intro. Man, I love this anime so much. I'm so glad I decided to watch it after all
In
these
this
years.
episode, I want to talk about my
I wish that I would have watched it sooner, but like I'm glad I watched it when I did. I'm glad I watched it at all.
first impressions, and it's just first impressions. I'm not at the point yet where I would dare to give an analysis and an explanation of the finale of this story, but I want to tell you what my first thoughts are after having seen the two last episodes of the television series, and then also the two other episodes that were made a year later after the television series finale got a lot of backlash from
Which I wish it didn't, but I'm kind of glad that it did, because I think if we wouldn't have got that backlash, then we wouldn't have got another ending. And I think both of them can be the true endings at the same time, because I think reality is kind of stacked on each other. I don't know. I'm not going to get into that right now. That goes deep.
the fans at the time. So they retold the story of what happens at the end of the Shinji's journey, you could say, but this time from another perspective and from a different angle, and also with changes. And it's fascinating to juxtapose these two, to compare them to one another. And it also had a huge impact on me because I was expecting certain things to happen.
Well, my power went out while I was in the middle of this, so we're going to go back a little bit. I don't remember where I was, but I think it was about here at the 2-minute mark. So let's get back into it.
Remade episodes, and that kind of wraps up that first part of the story, because of course the manga continues the story, and there are also
Manga.
a few other
You mean manga?
made-for-TV movies that have come out afterwards, which I haven't seen yet, but I'll get to that at a later point. So that's what I want to do
I haven't seen him
first,
yet either.
give you my overall sentiment and my first thoughts about the way this story ends, and where everything that I've been studying for so many months actually led to. And then what I want to do next time is to go back and rewatch. Now that I know how the story is ending, I want to go back to the first episode and do a deep dive analysis of everything that I now can see in that first episode, and then the second and the third. We'll be busy for a while. That I missed because I didn't know where the story went. I didn't know the full background. This is one of those genius stories that it really pays off to go back after you've seen how it ends. It's kind of a little bit with...
So wait, so you watched the ending and then you went back to watch the rest of the anime? That's kind of an insane way to watch it.
I'm a big Star Wars fan. With Star Wars as well, what they do now is to enhance the movies that we already know by telling the backstory. So we've seen the story of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and now that we know how he spent his time on Tatooine between the prequels and A New Hope, that when you now rewatch A New Hope, that character all of a sudden has way more depth, and some of the things that he says carry much more weight than they had when
I've seen Star Wars, but I don't remember. It's been such a long time. I don't know nothing about Star Wars.
that backstory wasn't there. And so
I need to react to some more lore to get some more Star Wars lore. I know a lot about the video games.
I love that when the story has so many layers, and so many layers are added to that story, that it makes you want to go back and reevaluate what you thought you knew. That, for me, is part of the attraction of Neon Evangelion, or Neon Genesis Evangelion. So that's what we're going to do. And then every week when I do a deep dive per episode, I will also create a short TikTok video where I just take one highlight of that episode, or I will just probably repackage it or re-record it. But as you know, the TikToks are only a few minutes. It's 2-3 minutes. What I do on TikTok is usually considered to be very long, because it's a short attention span type of medium. But I hope that people are intrigued by what they see on TikTok, so that they come over, and if they become a patron, they can also join you as an audience.
Yeah, people who are actually interested in watching content and getting substance from content, they'll be paying attention. They'll be interested. You don't want the people who are just mindlessly scrolling looking for brain rot anyway, because they don't really understand things, I think, most of the time. Just while they're viewing videos, not saying they don't understand things in general. That's just the type of the content it is. That's just the name of the game.
and listen to these shows. What I love about this story is that it is not just a story about, huge mega robots fighting each other. What the creators wanted to do was to set it apart from series that do that are about these big mech robots fighting and battling each other. They wanted to give this story more of a soul.
Yeah, and it ends up being like you think they're mech robots at first, but then you find out that they're actually kind of not. They're kind of like organic, and they're actually a being itself that you're kind of piloting, and you become one. It's crazy.
Maybe even literally in a certain way. And that is why, from the beginning, we follow the pilots of those big, robots or whatever creatures they are. And we get to know a little bit of their backstory. And the series constantly switches between the very mundane day-to-day life of these kids, because they're all like 13, 14 years old, trying to deal with school, with, their burgeoning emotions and going through puberty and whatnot. So on the one hand, this looks like a very kind of common Japanese slice of life type of anime. And then there are these big, dramatic fighting scenes, this overall...
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it's like in real life, man. It's like most of the time it's just mundane. You got just life going on. Fun things happen, sad things happen, but then sometimes real, actual battles take place, and they tear you apart, man. They really do. And then right back to the mundane slice of life.
Huge mythology that shows you little pieces of what's going on, but never reveals the full truth. And even at points during the story, tries to kind of make you think about things in a certain way, and only to completely turn that upside down later on when you realize what is truly going on. And this is not just true for us as an audience, but it's also true for a lot of the main characters who have actually no idea what they are involved in. And then there is a third layer. So you've got the slice of life stuff. You've got the big mythological apocalyptic battle.
Dude, the more he's explaining it, the more that I like this anime. Holy shit, because he is completely right.
Going on. And then there is the inner journey. There is what connects these two stories is what happens on the inside of the main characters, and more particularly of Shinji, who is the main character. I wouldn't say the hero of the story, because he definitely is not a hero and doesn't see himself as a hero, but he's the protagonist.
And we so desperately want him to be a hero, and he's just not all the way even to the end, and it ends with him not being a hero.
And because of this inner story, which also is about a battle, but it's not a battle with forces from the outside, it's a battle, an inside battle between the good and evil inside of every one of us, with trauma and hurt and fear and everything that holds us back, and then at the same time this longing for liberation, for healing, for something else. And because you have that external story of a battle, and you've got that internal story, and it is at the same time about these regular kids that a lot of us can identify with, because we've all been, at that age, 13, 14 years old. So we do recognize a lot of their emotions and the conflicts and the little things that make life very hard at that age. But
it even gets like into the teenage sex brain.
What I believe is so genius about this story is that ultimately the bigger story, the big outside external battle is, I think, a metaphor of the inner battle. And that brings me to the last two episodes of the television series and why they are so incredibly good. And I know that this is kind of a solitary position. Not many people actually liked the ending.
Yeah, right? I don't get it. I think it might be a Christian thing, because I loved it, man. I loved that ending. I don't know which one I like more. I think it's an absolute masterpiece
of the television series. Even the majority of the people that follow me on TikTok, and there are hundreds of thousands of them, Most of them agree that the way the television show ends is rubbish. And if you really want to get a good experience of the ending of the story, you have to watch the End of Evangelion. I disagree.
Yeah.
I
let that be known during my reaction too, that I actually enjoyed that ending. It was great.
Really want to stress how much these last two episodes, first of all, follow from the entire story. That
I'm like on the verge of being emotional right now. Like I can feel in my stomach and in my throat that I'm about to cry, just him talking about it, making me think about it. Because it was incredible, dude.
that came before it.
I think the people who don't like it just really kind of didn't get it.
And then secondly, are told in a way that is so creative and innovative and touch upon such deep layers that are so relatable, that I actually believe that the way the television show ended is far superior to the way they wrap up the story in the End of Evangelion.
I don't know if it's far superior, but I think it is actually a superior ending. I just don't know which one I like more. That's a little bit different than finding one act to be a better ending, you know.
It's for me, it's no doubt, no discussion possible. The television show ending is the ending that this story needed. And yes, the movie gives a lot of context and gives you a lot of, like, oh, so what was going on, what we didn't see in the television show, but it's only information. It doesn't, for me, it doesn't go to the core of what this story is about, which is this inner conflict. And so the last two episodes of the series are almost entirely taking place inside the minds of the main protagonists, especially Shinji, but also to a lesser extent Asuka and Rei. And it's very atypical. Now, one of the
it's very different. I've never seen anything like it, actually. And I haven't seen anything like copy it or do anything similar. It's so different.
Pragmatic reasons for these final two episodes to be so different, also stylistically, is that they actually ran out of time and they ran out of resources. The whole...
Which is just perfect, dude. It's perfect, because that's what's going to happen to us. The end is going to come and we're not going to expect it and be like, no, we have so much to do. And that's like how death is too. Like when you die, you're like, I'm not done yet.
Series was made under extreme duress. It was very, very difficult.
So is life. That's what makes it so perfect.
To get these episodes done in time, especially getting the story started, took months and months of preparation. I think the first episode, it took them 6 months to write it and to prepare for it.
Wow.
And so they were in a crunch time-wise. They also were in a crunch budget-wise. There was almost no money left. And this is still an anime from the time that everything was hand-drawn. And so, yes, of course, there are a few, I think, computer graphics involved, but still, every second that you see consists of 24 individual frames. You know, that's how animation works. Or in this case, in anime, oftentimes much less frames. And that's one of the ways that anime has such a distinct style. It's oftentimes...
And they also use like templates and stuff like that to really help. So you can use a template, multiple templates to make up different frames. So you don't have to keep redrawing stuff over and over again.
Because they use one cell sometimes for several seconds, and it will just change or move the background.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. But the rest of
the image is static. That's why everything is so stylized, and oftentimes you're looking at a scene, for instance, when they go down to the city below the surface of Tokyo 3, and the only thing that moves is the background. It's the elevator, but the rest is static. It was just a very pragmatic way of saving money, because then you don't have to draw all these different, cells. You can just use one drawing and then just have the background move. You just make a bigger background. So what was conceived as a way to cut the budget. It was something that made also in a certain way the look that we associate so much with anime. And the problem was that for the last 2 episodes of the television,
Yeah, and it's really like nowadays you get everything so colorful and the graphics look so good and it's over the top and there's just no heart and soul in it. There's like they're trying to go off of trends and like really capture your eye, but there's no style.
television series, they were under contract. They didn't even have the money, the budget to do like super low level cell animation. So even with the tricks that they used in previous episodes, they weren't able to get to the end of the story. And so that's why they had to resort to even more mundane sources of imagery. And that's why in these 2 last episodes, you will also see real footage, like just stock footage from people, from trains, from whatever. And you see sketches, you see pencil sketches.
Oh yeah.
They reuse almost everything that they created in the past, including their pencil sketches.
Dude, and that just like adds to it, man, because everything's coming apart.
To tell that story.
It's all being undone. That's what it made it feel like.
Of what happens on the inside of Shinji's mind. So it's super abstract, and I can totally see why that is jarring to a lot of people. But what I think is so genius is that despite those constraints, despite that crunch, it still does something extraordinary, because the journey of Shinji, what he goes through, what he starts to realize over time, is so deep and so true. And the reason I think that it has such an emotional impact, at least on me, is that this is actually based on Hideaki Anno's own experiences.
I didn't know that.
Often
That's
said in
incredible.
interviews that he suffers from depression, and that before he started to make Neon Genesis Evangelion, he had a period of time, several years, where he was in a deep depression. And then someone gave him a book about psychology. I'm not exactly sure which book it was, but during his depression, he started to read that book, and to him it was a revelation. That psychology book helped him.
Yeah, how about that? It was a revelation.
To understand what was going on, why he was suffering from depression, what the choices were that he needed to make. And a lot of what you see in Shinji's character, and that also is sometimes grating and irritating, is like he's always crying, always whining, complaining, always blaming everyone around him, but he's afraid to look inside. So he is constantly on the run. He wants to hide between other people, and then when other people
I can really feel that, man.
people don't help him, he feels even more powerless. Very, very similar, I think, to what many people who suffer from depression also experience.
I've had depression before, man. I know how it is.
This you're closed up from the world. It seems like you're completely isolated. No one can help you, and you can't help yourself. So there doesn't seem to be an exit. And having more insight in...
Yeah, and it's like internal agony, and you don't want to like dump it out on anybody. And then when you finally do, everything comes apart.
How your brain...
Just like the end of this anime.
...works. How your emotions are linked to neural pathways, and how trauma can make certain connections in your brain that are not healthy. But you keep repeating the patterns, and so that always kind of repeats and even strengthens the depressed feelings. Once you start to understand how that works, you can also maybe discover a way out. And that is what is happening in these last 2 episodes, where Shinji, who has gone through so much emotional trauma in his early years, he lost his mom, he has a horrible father. Again, not spoiler, because it's in the first episode. His father is a
And you know what? Same here, man. I lost my mother to drugs. I mean, she's still alive, but she's insane. She basically suffers constant psychosis, and it's really sad. She's like stuck in a wheelchair, and like You can't talk to her, you can't show her anything because she's just crazy. She thinks that there are demons crawling out of the walls all the time. It's so sad, man. Like, she just wanted to go off and party when I was a kid, so she wasn't there. I just didn't have a mom growing up. And when I did, she was fucked up. And my dad, I didn't even know him till I was 12. And he was a piece of shit too. And it's just like, I forgive them now. But back then, man, I had so much anger and depression about it.
Horrible person. He every time that he fights these angels, these aggressive monsters, it's a reflection of what's happening inside of him. He feels like he's in a fight with forces that he can't understand, that seem to come back all the time, and there's no end to it. And if you've defeated one, then there is another one that pops up. Just like in depression, you may sometimes have that feeling that no matter what you do, no matter how much you try to resist, it comes back in waves, and then it takes you back into that darkness and into that solitude. And there seems to be no victory possible until you start to realize that you are the one that can make a change, that healing has to come from the inside. Yes, with maybe outside help and with people that explain to you, or a book, that it can tell you this is how it works. You have to do the work. There's no one who can do it for you. You can't take a pill against depression. You can take medication to suppress the symptoms, but the origin of what causes this inner darkness, that is something, that's a fight you have to fight yourself. That, I think, and I'm not a psychologist, but this is what I gather from the story. This is what Hideaki Anno wanted to tell. It's about his own battle and his own efforts to overcome this isolation by opening up to the people and by accepting that life is fundamentally broken. That it's not,
We are fallen. We came from dust, and to dust we will return.
It's no use to run away from pain and suffering like we all do, but people that suffer from depression do it maybe to the extreme. But that the only way to get out of that darkness is to accept that even though you may step into the light, it's not going to be like heaven. There's still going to be pain and violence and suffering. But you have to grow stronger. You have to make the deliberate decision that you want to live and that you are worth living. And that despite suffering, you still have value. And so that's a journey that I think is explained very well in these last two episodes. And for me, that was the core of the story. So I was so fascinated that they dared to tell that part of the story and forego the whole, bigger mythology. Which brings me to the end of Evangelion, which is the movie, where in the...
Was it a movie? I didn't watch it like a movie. I watched it like it was 2 redo episodes, and they were extended episodes because they were like 46 minutes long. That's how I watched it. I didn't realize it was supposed to be a movie.
Well, these 2 more cinematic versions of this ending, they show what happened at the same time in the outside world. And so,
is that what it was?
Fascinating. That's...
I thought it was like alternate, so it's like actually just more context.
Really riveting, and it's also very shocking because that battle also culminates in a lot of violence. And there were times there I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they put this in the movie.
Yeah, right. Like when Shinji's with Asuka in the hospital, and he's got the jism on his hand. That's crazy. I can't believe that they did that.
There is this infamous scene in the hospital that a lot of people on TikTok wanted me to comment upon. And that's just part of the...
Yeah, it's like that sexual degeneracy, man. Like, I understand. I really do. I was kind of like that when I was a kid too, man. If I saw some titty, I was just...
The tragic decisions that Shinji takes over and over again. And it's just minor tragedy compared to the mass murder that takes place.
Oh,
in that
yeah.
final
Oh,
episode.
yeah.
It's really gruesome. I want to warn you that this is unlike anything you've seen in the television series. And yet,
It's unlike anything that I've ever seen, actually.
it's kind of the logical conclusion of that story.
Yeah.
It is an apocalyptic battle. But what is the big shocker of the end of Evangelion is not the scope of that final battle, but it is that in that movie, Shinji takes different decisions.
Okay.
Instead
yeah. So, yeah. I was gonna say, like, no, he did different stuff, but yeah, okay. It's not really like, this is the other stuff that happens. We're gonna extend upon it. No, there was different stuff that happens. It was like an alternate ending. It was kind of like an ending that I guess more people wanted because they didn't like that first ending, but I did. But I think this end of Evangelion was also needed. I think they were both needed.
Healing, he is actually getting worse. And so it's almost like a...
Ooh, I have an idea. How about when I rewatch Neon Genesis Evangelion, I'm going to skip the last 2 episodes and watch it as if End of Evangelion is the last 2 episodes. I wonder how it would play like that.
a mirror image of the end of the television series. It's
It
like
really is.
You know that in Stranger Things, you've got the regular world, and then you've got the, you know, how do they call it? The underworld?
The
or
upside down?
The upside down.
Yeah.
And this is what gave me such a whiplash when watching the end of Evangelion. I was like, but where is the story that they were telling in the last 2 television episodes? This is the opposite. And it's only after seeing the whole thing that I started to wonder, well, maybe that's on purpose as well. Maybe that is what they wanted to do, to tell 2 possible endings, which then makes the end of Evangelion very intriguing and definitely worth re-exploring. But, and I'm going to wrap things up and then I'm going into spoiler territory, but my final thoughts about the end of Evangelion is that it baffled me. I was watching,
Yep.
and again,
I was kerfuffled. I was perplexed.
I've studied this series. I thought I knew what was going on. And then I'm just, there were so many moments during that movie that I was like, what is happening? What am I watching? There are like minute-long sequences where I'm completely out of any clue as to why that is included. There are hints that there is a rhyme and reason to all that, but at the same time, it goes so fast and there's so much happening that I just don't have the time to think about it. And so,
Yeah, and like some of it seems like it didn't actually happen. It wasn't real. And I get it, man. I really do. And maybe we're not supposed to get it because that's kind of like what life is like.
so at the end of that movie, I was exhausted.
Yeah.
I was emotionally, intellectually, completely exhausted. I was like, oh my...
It took me a little while to get to it after I completed the original series, because like the original series was heavy, man, and then this one was even heavier. That's why it took so long for me to get to this analysis, because I had to really like think about it and ponder it.
Goodness, I have to rewatch this multiple times, and I probably will have to do a lot of research.
Yep. I'm gonna rewatch it in Japanese with the end of Evangelion being the ending instead of the last 2 episodes normally.
In order to fully understand why they told the story this way and why this story, this version of the story, is so different and in many ways opposite to what they showed at the end.
I wonder if there's like any interviews with the creator or anything. I'm gonna have to get some of that. Leave down there in the comments if there's some other things that I should check out that explains End of Evangelion or Neon Genesis in general. Even deeper, even further, because I'd really like to know. I'm very curious.
End of the television series. So I had so many emotions. There was also a lot of tragedy in the End of Evangelion. There are moments where you're like, oh, no, they didn't do, really? There were just times where I was just, man, Don't tell this. I don't want to see this story. It's just too.
That's how
emotional.
it happens, man.
It's too hard. It's too painful. And you know what? That's probably, again, on purpose. They want us to feel like that. This is why this series is so good. It makes us feel so much.
Yeah, and they don't really do that nowadays anymore. Now it's more like manufactured. Like they know how to get you. This one got you in a way where it was like you didn't see it coming, and I don't even know if they actually meant to do all of the emotional stuff that they meant to do, because the creator was kind of just pouring his heart out onto the page, you know?
It makes us emote and reflect, and
like stuff nowadays, and even back then it was still kind of like this, and it just kind of got worse, where everything's trying to be a spectacle. Everything wants to like blow your mind with how pretty the visuals are. This didn't really do that, even though it was mind-blowing with the visuals. It was like very abstract. Yeah, he said it.
And relate to what we see. And there are not many series or many movies that are able to do that, because we're so engulfed with media, with stories, and a lot of it is forgettable. There's so many stories where, like, yeah, that's a good popcorn movie. I had a good time, and then you ask me a week later what was the movie about. Yeah, something with dinosaurs. I don't know about the rest. With Neon Genesis Evangelion,
dude, I could talk to you for hours about this show, man.
I mean, I can tell you for hours.
Yeah,
What?
dude, I didn't pre-watch this. I think me and this guy would be friends.
Which moments struck me and what made me think and what I discovered, and there's not a single day that I'm not thinking about the meaning of Neon Genesis Evangelion. And it's not just because I make stuff for TikTok. It's just because this story is so good and I want to rewatch it, and well, that's why I'm doing this show. That's why I'm sharing that with you, knowing very well that not everyone will be as passionate about this series, but I know that there are enough.
That's me.
That
I have become passionate about this series. Tell me what you think about this whole series. Tell me what you think about this guy, this video, all the connections. Bro, this is quickly, like almost instantly entered my top 10 anime of all time. It's so good. It is so good. If you haven't seen it, I so highly recommend you watch it. I'll see you in the next one. I'll be checking out some other anime. Let me know, actually, down there in the comments what anime I should check out next that's similar to this one.